Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful, creepy little human being you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's Morbid makeup video. I'm so happy we can meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow, in all of this craziness today, you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or BRATTERSTEIN, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing a girl, well, a woman named Isabella Guzman. Now, Isabella. On August 28, 2013, in Aurora, Colorado, 18-year-old Isabella Guzman murdered her own mother, Yoon Mi Hoi, in a completely brutal fashion. She stabbed her own mother anywhere between 79 and 151 times in the torso, in the neck, and in the face. Yeah, this one's gonna be intense. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell, because I put out a new Morbid makeup video every single week and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically, you. So go ahead and join the group and become one of us. One of us. One of us. One of us. So now that we're done with that pesky but totally necessary self-promotion, let's get into this video. So Isabella Guzman is a person who I had actually never heard of. I never heard of her crimes until very recently when I was sort of scrolling through the internet like I do. And I saw a bunch of articles, videos, things popping up that said that this girl, Isabella Guzman, was viral for her crimes right now because she had become TikTok famous. So I was like, what? So in looking into it, I found that there was a trend on TikTok where people took clips of Isabella during her court appearance, which we'll get into talking about that later. And they would make a video of it and then they would stitch it, which is kind of like, if you have TikTok, you know, and if you don't, it's where you like put your video next to the video and it makes one video and you're trying to like mimic her actions. And in the video, it has a song playing over it called Sweet But Psycho, because Isabella was physically a good-looking woman and did some pretty horrific things. Sweet but psycho. This trend has all but, you know, pretty much chilled out by now. It happened more in like late 2020 and a little bit in the beginning of this year, but that is how I came upon her case. And I honestly just wonder, these kids, you kids on the TikTok, do you really consider like what this girl did and what she went through and who she was? Because it's pretty horrible. What she did is awful, and the whole case is incredibly tragic. But you know what? Let me tell you all about it so you can understand. So come, gather around and let me tell you the story of Isabella Guzman and the murder of her mother. Isabella Guzman was born June 9th, 1995, making her a Gemini. She was born to parents Yoon Mi, her mother, and Robert Guzman, her father. There, unfortunately, isn't a ton of information about the marriage between her parents, but the relationship did not last long, and the couple was divorced before Isabella was 5 years old. About a year after the divorce, her mother actually did remarry to a man named Ryan Hoi. Yoon Mi and Ryan were married 13 years, and sadly, it was Ryan who would end up finding his wife murdered. After her parents' divorce, Isabella did live with her mother and her stepfather initially, but when Isabella was about 7 years old, they actually sent her to live with her biological father because the relationship between mother and daughter was incredibly strained, even at such a young age. And that's just kind of wild to me. I can't imagine. I mean, I haven't been around a lot of 7-year-olds, but I can't imagine a 7-year-old being so bad that her mother cannot deal with her and chooses to send her to live with somebody else. I mean, based on some stuff we hear from Isabella later, I'm wondering if it was like that they couldn't deal with her or if they just didn't want to deal with her. But either way, it was said that Isabella was such a problem child and showed so much disrespect and was like out of control that her mother and her stepfather sent her to live with her biological father, Robert. The distance between Isabella and her mother did not really seem to help the relationship, however, and as time went on and Isabella got older, things just kind of seemed to get worse and worse for them. Now, I couldn't find definitive answers for what it was that Isabella and her mother fought over. I did see articles that said that it was about boys, that Isabella had a lot of boyfriends and that they would come and sneak into the house at night, and that people, like neighbors, would actually report seeing boys like hopping over the fence, leaving at night and coming at night. But the places where I saw these articles were like sites that I don't know if I trust the reporting to be 100% true. I'm not saying it's not true, I'm just saying like I have places where I trust the articles from, and this was just one that I was kind of like, you know. And in these articles, dude, there was just so much like honestly wrong reporting also. So like, okay, some of the articles even described Isabella as a he and as her mother being pregnant, but I do not believe that that is true at all. So with that said, take the boyfriend thing as like a theory. I don't know if it's actually true, but that is something that I read. Now, I couldn't find anything definitively that said that Isabella was living back with her mother when she was 18 years old. But I did see reporting that, that's where the crime happened, that's where she was the night of the murder, and that's where she had been in the weeks leading up to the murder. So I think it's safe to say that at some point, Isabella moved back in with her mother and her stepfather, and was living with them at the time of the crime. Yo, I really can't speak English today. I am sorry. Just realized that I still had this clip in. The youths have made me feel like I'm old if I don't retrain my hair, so ignore that as well. I'm having issues. Now, back to Isabella's crime. What happened that night, August 28th, 2013? I'm gonna tell you now. So, just after 10 p.m. on August 28th, 2013, Ryan Hoyt, Isabella's stepfather, called into 911 and said that his wife, 47-year-old Yoonmi Hoy, and his stepdaughter, 18-year-old Isabella Guzman, were locked in the family bathroom and there was blood leaking out from under the bathroom door. So apparently that night, Ryan Hoy and Isabella were the only two home until about 9:30 p.m. when Yoonmi Hoy returned home from her shift at work. Ryan had said that he knew Isabella was in the house, but he hadn't seen her since about 8:30 that night. So Ryan and his wife sat on the couch. They ate some dinner. I guess she brought home McDonald's. They ate some dinner, and at about 9:30, she went upstairs. She was like, I'm gonna go take a shower, and she went upstairs. After a little bit of time of her being upstairs, he says he heard a loud thump and then heard his wife calling for him, so he quickly ran upstairs. And when he got upstairs, he saw that the bathroom door was slightly open. So he walks over to it and he kind of looks in and he sees that Isabella's sitting on the floor with her back against the door and she's pushing it closed. And before he has a chance to react at all, she pushes it closed and she locks it. So Ryan, worried for his wife's safety, runs downstairs, gets his cell phone and calls 911. So while still on the phone with 911, Ryan goes upstairs and he tries to break into the bathroom. And when he does, he finds his wife on the bathroom floor in just horrible condition, and Isabella's standing there half dressed. She's in shorts and a bra with a knife pointed at the ground. Isabella then just walks out of the bathroom, looks straight ahead, doesn't even acknowledge him or look at him, and instead of going after Isabella, he stays and he tries to perform CPR on his wife. I'm sure that they told him to do this on the phone because that's what they do on 911 calls, and she was way too far gone for him to help though, unfortunately. Yoonmi Hoy was found naked on the floor. Her throat had been slashed. She had been stabbed approximately 30 times in the face and nearly 50 to her neck. I did actually see other reports that stated that Yoonmi was actually stabbed 151 times, but I've seen conflicting reports on how many it was. So it's anywhere from 79 to 151 times is how many times Isabella stabbed her mother in this region, which is just horrifying. Ryan said that when Isabella left the bathroom, blank stare, holding the knife, not acknowledging him. She walked out of the bathroom, went downstairs, and left through the family backyard. What's so sad about this, besides the obvious everything being sad about this, is that this wasn't the first time. This call, Ryan calling police to report his wife being attacked, wasn't even the first time that police were called to that property that day. Police had been out to the house earlier that day, either in the morning or afternoon. I couldn't find the exact time, but it was before Yoonmi had left for her shift at work. And they were called out because Isabella had sent her mother a threatening email that freaked her out. So they came over to do a welfare check. The email just said, "You will pay," which that's ominous. And her mom was like, no, that's creepy. So she called the police and they showed up. So when police showed up, they explained the situation, explained what was going on, and police were like, yo, listen, she's 18, this is your house, you can kick her out if you want to. And apparently this information, and in hearing this, Isabella sort of chilled out. This kind of de-escalated the situation, or so they thought, and police left that interaction thinking that the issue had been resolved. So after that initial fight, Yoonmi and Ryan actually called Robert and had Isabella's, biological father come over so that he could have a talk with her because, Yoonmi was so overwhelmed. She didn't know what to do. And Robert came over and he sat down with his daughter and he's like, listen, you need to respect your mother. You need to have respect for your elders. You need to listen to her. You need to stop acting the way you're acting. And he thought that he was making progress with her as they had their little heart-to-heart in the backyard beneath the trees. He told her like she really needed to listen and be respectful and like considerate to her mother, and he really thought that he was getting through to her, but then just 3 hours later she would murder her mother and his ex-wife. Okay, so after the murder, the police started trying to find Isabella. So they start looking into her cell phone, trying to trace it, but it turned out that either it had died or she had had the, you know, the foresight to turn it off, and Isabella managed to stay hidden from police the entire night. At about 11:30 a.m. the following day, police received a call that led them to a parking garage that wasn't far from Isabella's family home. And it had been reported incorrectly. Somebody said that there was a body in a car, so police like rushed over there. When they got there was no body in the car. I don't know how you accidentally report that. Either way, when they did get there though, they found items that seemed to be linked to Isabella's case. So they were like, okay, let's search this parking garage. So as I said, police started to canvass the area around the parking structure, and they ended up finding Isabella trying to escape the parking structure. I guess she had seen that they were onto her and she tried to run out, but at 2 p.m. on August 29th, 2013, Isabella Guzman was arrested and she was charged with first-degree murder. In June of 2014, Isabella Guzman pleaded not guilty to the murder of her mother by reason of insanity. And therein lies all the intrigue in this case, besides like the total brutality of it, of course. During Isabella's trial, a specialist did testify that Isabella was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and that she had been suffering with these delusions for years. He noted that she had a lot of symptoms of this illness, such as just staring off into space, talking to people that weren't there, and just laughing to herself out of nowhere. So it appeared that she was suffering from both visual and auditory hallucinations and also suffering from paranoia as well. Apparently, Isabella also said that when she killed her mother, she didn't even realize it was her mother that she was killing. She instead believed that her mother was a woman named Cecilia and she had to kill her in order to save the world. Isabella was actually late to her initial court date because she refused to leave her cell. And once they finally got her to leave her cell and she came to court, she was definitely pretty weird. I've watched as many clips as I could possibly find online of her behavior in the courtroom, and she definitely does seem off. Isabella sort of like smiles and smirks at the camera, and then again later when she notices that it's there again, she sort of just stares at it with completely dead eyes for like a super long period of time. She's just like, I can't do it. I don't have what she has, but she stares at it for a really long time, and then she finally like breaks and she's like points at her eyes, kind of like, I mean, you can't get into the mind of somebody like this and guess what they were doing. How it looked to me was like showing that she was showing emotion because she kind of had some tears in her eyes, but it looked really like just intense. And she kind of like stares off a lot. She blinks a lot. She just seemed generally confused to me in all of the footage that I saw. And what's super wild about this case to me is that the prosecution actually agreed with and accepted the defense's innocence by reason of insanity plea, which I don't think I've ever actually seen, at least nothing that I can think of in like recent memory, of a prosecutor just being like, yep, that's what it is. But they said that there was clear evidence that this girl was suffering, and so they accepted the non-guilty plea, and the judge accepted it as well. The DA said of the situation, and I quote, "We punish people who make decisions to do wrong when they knew better and they could have done something differently. In this particular case, I'm convinced based on the evidence that I've seen and the information that's been presented in court that this woman did not know right from wrong, and she could not have acted differently than she did given the significant schizophrenia and paranoid delusions, audible, visual hallucinations that she was going through. I was convinced of it and felt like in the interest of justice, I had to take these steps." So rather than be sent to prison, Isabella was admitted into a state mental hospital, and that's where she will stay indefinitely until she is no longer considered to be a danger to herself or to others. In late 2020, after being held for 7 years in the Colorado State Mental Health Institute, Isabella tried to be released. Isabella appeared via like Zoom call. It was some sort of video call because, you know, and she said that her mental health had been restored. She actually said, and I quote, "I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health. I am not mentally ill anymore, and I am not a danger to myself or to others." Isabella also shed some light on maybe what was going on things that were making the family fight. And what she said is that she actually suffered from abuse, physical and verbal, from her family all throughout her life. She said that there was already tension and fights when she was a child, but when she was 14 years old, she decided to leave the family's religion. Her mother was a Jehovah's Witness, and in deciding to do this and forego her religion, the tensions and the fights and the abuse just got worse. Her relationship with her mother was particularly intense and unhealthy, and the fights went from just regular old screaming matches, verbal insults, verbal abuse, to Isabella spitting in her mother's face. And then it escalated to physical violence. In one of these altercations, Isabella got her hand injured. She held it up in the Zoom call, but you couldn't like really see it, but she says that there's still scars on her hand to this day. Now, I don't know if there's any evidence to actually prove this abuse. What's so frustrating about this case is there really isn't that much online, and it sucks because I would love to have like the full story. I want to have all of the information because I want to give you guys, I love to give you as much information as possible, but unfortunately it's just not out there, which, I mean, if all of this is true and she is like truly, truly mentally ill, which it seems like she was, I get why it's not out there because like, that's private. But like, I still want to know because I want to tell you guys. And because I want to know for myself because I'm a nosy ass bitch. With that said, with deductive reasoning, do I think it's possible that her family did not know how to deal with her mental illness, didn't know what it was, and in frustration in dealing with it, maybe there was abuse? Yeah, that seems like something that could happen, but it also seems likely, or possible rather, that because she was dealing with paranoid schizophrenia, she was seeing the family situation as worse than it actually was. But I really can't say what was more true. But, they both seem like possible scenarios. Apparently also with Isabella, and this is just tragic, dude, especially since like she was, this situation that I'm about to discuss is always tragic, but especially since she was like considered to be mentally ill and was in a hospital that's supposed to like help her. This is going to be very frustrating for you. It's frustrating for me. In 2015, Isabella reported to the authorities at the hospital that she was staying at that she had been sexually abused by a male employee at the freaking mental health institute that she was living. She said that this man who worked there had asked her to go into a closet to look at some clothes, and once she entered, he entered behind her, closed the doors, and sexually assaulted her. She said that this wasn't the only time that he had sexually assaulted her. This is just the time that she had finally said something because she was afraid to say something because there was a serious imbalance of power there. This is a guy who's looking over her and her mental health, and she thought that if she had reported him, he would like ruin her life, maybe say that she was worse off than she was and that she wasn't getting better and keep her there longer to continue abusing her. It just pisses me off, bro. Unfortunately, there is no update on this assault case. The last I saw is that the DA was reporting that the hospital had never reported the abuse to them, even though Isabella is saying that she reported it to hospital authorities. So either she didn't report it, or she did and the hospital didn't tell the DA, or the DA dropped the ball. Somebody dropped the ball, and I'm not sure who it was. And there's no update, which makes me nuts. So I want to know what's happening. I know she was trying to prosecute him. That much I do know. And sadly, that's also the last update we have on Isabella's murder case and her potential release from the mental institution as well. It frustrates me that there's no updates because like I'm really curious. I'm really curious how it's all going to play out. I'm really curious if she's going to be released. I mean, it's been months and there's no update, and I'm really curious as to how like the assault charge is going to play out, and I'm curious about how her mental health is. I want updates. I hate like open-ended cases. You guys know this. Or you should know this. I hate it. I need to know things. And that, my friends, is the story of Isabella Guzman, the girl who in 2013 murdered her mother and then was made TikTok famous for her crimes. What do you think? I wish I had more information. I'm finding myself having trouble landing on like a solid opinion on this case because I feel like I need more information on Isabella herself, her relationship with her mother, her upbringing, if the abuse was there, her history with mental illness, all of that. Because right now there's just so much in the air that I can't land on a solid opinion. I feel like I just can't get the full picture, you know? Like, I did see the footage of her in trial, and she does definitely seem sick, but like, I just wish I could be a fly on the wall of that meeting with the psychologist, you know what I mean? Like, to really see how she was acting. I want to know what they saw, and I want to know what the prosecution saw that made them so agreeable to accepting the guilty plea, saying that she was not guilty of like actual responsibility of her crime, because I just cannot remember a case in recent memory where that happened. So it must have been pretty severe for the prosecution to just be like, you know what, yeah, this girl is very sick and not responsible. I'd also really like to know if she did sustain this abuse and what type of abuse she sustained. I'd like to know how that affected her and how that plays into her mental illness as well. I just want to know a lot, and unfortunately the answers aren't there, and I just need finality. My Virgo moon cannot take this uncertainty, okay? I hope we at least get an update soon on whether or not she's going to be released, but can you imagine if she is, how weird that will be? Like, where is she going to go? Is her family going to have her back? I don't think her stepfather will. I remember right after the crime, there was a news report, and the news reporter was standing in front of the Guzman Hoy home, and there were trash cans out front, and it was just filled with items that looked to have belonged to Isabella that were thrown out into the trash by, I'm assuming, her stepfather. So I can't see him really welcoming her back with open arms. Maybe her biological father, but she's also going to be an adult, and it's just, I don't know how that looks. You know what I mean? And as far as the TikTok thing, it seems to have mostly died down. I did go on TikTok and search it out so I could kind of, you know, have an idea of what I was talking about here. And most of the videos I saw are from the end of 2020 and a couple trickling into like January and February of this year, but mostly it seems to have died down. It's just so freaking odd to me the way people romanticize murderers just because they're good looking, but man, do we see that just far too much. And it's just sad because if she is released, you know, she'll have the ability to like look herself up, and seeing things like this and seeing her and her condition and her crime mocked might not be what she would love to see of herself. If she really is like sick, like they say, she's got to feel absolutely terrible for what she did. She doesn't have her mom anymore, and she has to live with knowing that that's something she did. Whether she was mentally responsible or not, she still has to live without her and know that she's the one who murdered her in such a horrible way. And to see people just mocking it is like, it's a bummer, you know? It sucks. I think people forget that these are people's lives. Somebody actually died. People actually care. And obviously I'm not against, you know, talking about crime on the internet, but there's a way to do it respectfully. And duetting and like mocking the way she acts when she's suffering from schizophrenia might not be that, you know? Yoonmi is dead. She's gone forever. Her family has to go on with life without her, and Isabella has to go on with life knowing that she's gone because of something that she did, and that's just really, really sad, and that sucks for everyone involved. But anyways, guys, that completes this video. I hope that it was informative and interesting and gave you all the information that you would want when looking into this case. And I also, of course, want to thank you for hanging out with me and remembering Yoonmi and Isabella today, because I think that the story is worth remembering and their situation is worth acknowledging. And of course, I hope you enjoy the video, because I do these videos because I want to put out into the world what I think is interesting and what I would want to see. So of course I want you to enjoy them, because like, that's kind of the point of doing them. Not the only point, but it's definitely a shining star for me. Please let me know of any cases you would like to see me cover down below. I have a long list, and every single time you leave a suggestion, I add it to the list and I add your name so I can give you a shout out in a future video. So of course, make sure to leave those there, because I know you're filled with good taste and good ideas. Otherwise you would not be here. Of course, don't forget to join the Brat Pack if you have not already by subscribing and ringing the bell, because I put out a new Morbid makeup video every single week and I'd love to hang out with you. And if you want to hang out more consistently, like between uploads, Instagram and Twitter is where I am at. They are both BRATTERSTEIN, just like my namesake here, and I'm on there. I'm active, particularly on Instagram stories. I can't get enough. I don't know what it is. It's just, I love it. And with all of that said, thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That's tight. This is tight. Please stay safe out there and be nice to people, and I hope to see you in my next video.